Good evening and welcome to Edgemont High School's annual College Night program. We are so glad you're with us. My name is Emily Coleman and I am one of the four 10 through 12 counselors here at Edgemont. And I'm joined by my colleagues tonight, Jamie Brookman, Liz Fisher, and Stephanie Fuentes, as well as Kyle Hosier, our principal. Tonight, we are thrilled to have four amazing panelists from a wide range of colleges. They have each prepared a short presentation on a college admissions topic of importance. Just to note that this program is being recorded and will be available on our website after the event. Before we get started, though, we have two parent representatives who are here with us tonight to share some information about programs offered to our students. So we have Rachel Glosser and Meredith Cohen. Rachel, you want to go first?
I'll go first, so I'll hold the coughing. Hi, everyone. I'm going to be really quick. We want everyone to mark their calendars for the student-to-student college night. It's a one-night only event open to EHS juniors on Thursday, May 29th from 7 to 8 p.m. Recent high school graduates who are currently freshmen in college will meet with small groups to talk about their college experiences and answer questions about their schools. Sorry, I'm sick, so bear with me. Over 25 different colleges and universities will be represented. There are no parents or teachers at this event. It's a night for students to find out more about college life from the people who are experiencing it now and who shared your high school experiences too. So look out for all the communications that are coming and just make sure you mark May 28th. It's right after Memorial Day. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you. And Meredith?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for giving me a moment tonight. For those who don't know me, I'm Meredith Cohen, the new president of the Edgemont Scholarship Council, also known as the ESC. I just want to highlight what we do as you enter this next phase of planning for college. Our mission is to ensure that no Edgemont student is denied a college education because of financial need. Each year, thanks to the generosity of our community, the Edgemont Scholarship Council awards thousands of dollars for need-based scholarships to graduating seniors so they can continue their education and pursue their goals. The ESC is entirely community funded, and every contribution directly supports the students' futures. My goal today is to just simply raise awareness that this resource exists for you and to encourage anyone interested in learning more to check out our website at edgemontscholarshipcouncil.org or to email us at edgemontscholarshipcouncil@gmail.com. Thank you so much and best of luck as you enter this new phase for college planning.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So I think we're ready to get started. If at any point during this presentation you have questions, we encourage you to complete the Google form that's located on the homepage for this event. The counselors will be monitoring the questions as they come in, and our goal is to answer as many questions as time permits following the admission representative presentation. In case you need help finding the link, the red circles are where you can access the form on the same website that you have accessed this live presentation. So let's dive into tonight's topic. We will be learning about researching colleges and finding the right fit schools, a holistic approach to the admissions review process, how students can distinguish themselves within their applications, managing expectations through the journey, and ending with a discussion about a few new trends and words of wisdom. Before we meet the panelists, I want to give you a quick run through of how your school counselor will support students and families over the next year and a half. So we start by gathering as a grade in January to officially kick off the post-secondary process with our current juniors. Throughout the second semester, school counselors meet with students and their families for an individual post-secondary planning meeting. In May, we'll host a financing college evening program where we'll feature a financial aid specialist. And then before everyone leaves for the summer, we conduct an essay writing workshop for students, followed by free access to summer support from the college essay guide. When we get back in senior year, we will bring all the students back together again for another assembly to lay out all the logistics of the process. And then we meet with students individually on a needed basis on different parts of their application, their essay, their supplements throughout the semester until they submit their application. Some other things to know is that Edgemont hosts many college rep visits in the fall of senior year, which gives students an opportunity to get to know schools more in depth and build relationships. It's also where we build relationships with the 4 people that we have here tonight. The Edgemont counselors meet with every representative to update them on the amazing things that are happening here at Edgemont. Additionally, your school counselor will write a college recommendation for every senior who requires one. Our office also will send out secondary school reports that include a recommendation, the transcripts, and a school profile. So think of us as a hub in this process, and we are available to help at every stage along the way. So if you haven't already had the opportunity to review the short video posted on the event's website, we do recommend watching it. It's a brief review of the process from start to finish. And lastly, we are super excited because we're about to introduce a new college list building tool called College Kickstart. And we think that this program will be an excellent addition to our array of supports, and we look forward to sharing more information about the program and how we're launching it for the 11th graders in the new year. So now I'm going to stop because we want to meet the people who we're going to learn from tonight. So let's meet the panelists. We are so thankful to have 4 amazing college admissions professionals here with us tonight, each of whom brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. Mariah Bubel has worked at Binghamton University since 2004, and she's held the role of assistant director, senior assistant director, associate director, and now, since 2017, is the director of recruitment. Mariah holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in social science from Binghamton. We also have Jen Fondiller with us, who began her Barnard experience in 1984 when she stepped on campus as a first-year student, and after majoring in French, she attended Teachers College, where she earned a master's degree in student personnel administration and was a graduate assistant in the Office of Admissions at Columbia University. She was an assistant dean of admissions for 3 years before spending 7 years at Eugene Lang College as the director of admissions, and came back to her alma mater in 2000, where she has served as dean of admission, enrollment manager, vice president for enrollment and communications, and now vice president for enrollment and external affairs. She's also a parent of 2 former Edgemont students, and we are thrilled to have her here tonight. Brandy Samaru is a senior assistant director of admission for Indiana University in Bloomington. She's a proud alumna that's been working for the IU Office of Admission for almost 20 years. Brandy has been based on the East Coast for the last 13 years, working primarily with students in the tri-state, but her territories include the entire Northeast except for Massachusetts. And Josh Tyler graduated from Bard with a degree in music and then went on to get Bard's Masters of Arts in Teaching program to earn his degree in history education in 2008. And after teaching for 5 years in the public school system, Josh has returned to Bard and has been with the admissions team ever since 2015. And in addition to his work with transfer students, Josh is also the coordinator of Bard College Bridge program for local high school students and is the homeschool, veterans, and music program liaison for the admissions office. We are going to start with Brandy, who's going to be discussing researching colleges and finding the right fit. So Brandy, I hand the baton over to you.
Thank you so much, Emily. I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you this evening. We've got a lot to get through, so I'm just going to jump right in. So choosing a college can feel overwhelming. There are thousands of schools, endless majors, and a million opinions coming at you. It can feel a little chaotic. So how do you decide? Let's talk about how to research schools, how to identify the right fit, and what you should focus on, especially during your junior year. So before you look at a single college website, before you Google a single ranking, you should start with yourself. What do you want? What excites you? What makes you feel supported? Make a list of your absolute must-haves. Think about your strengths, your challenges, and your goals, and ask yourself, am I a small class, big discussion person? Do I prefer listening, taking notes, and asking questions later? Do I want endless academic opportunities, or am I laser focused on one field? Do I want to stay close to home, or am I ready for a brand new environment? Also, think about life outside of the classroom. One of the top reasons students leave a school is because they don't make social connections. So look for activities, clubs, and communities that you would enjoy. Finding the right fit. You're going to hear this phrase a lot, finding the right fit. What that really means is, will this college support me, challenge me, and help me reach my goals? One of the best ways to answer that question is to visit campus. Many schools still offer virtual tours and information sessions, which is a great starting point, especially for colleges that might be a little further away. Now, as you explore, gather information from college websites, college fairs, and school visits. Don't forget to use your parents and counselors as a sounding board as well. They can offer insight, and it often helps to talk through your thoughts out loud. Now, what are some things you should consider? When you're researching colleges, think about a few key categories. The type of school, public versus private, 2 versus 4 year, the size. Do you want something small and intimate, or do you want to go more on the larger scale? Location can be key. You want rural, suburban, urban? How far away from home feels right to you? The student body, who goes there? What's the culture like? Academics, do they have the major you care about, and how flexible are they with that major? The campus atmosphere, do they have things to do, sports, arts, clubs, that overall energy that you feel on campus? Of course, support services play a key role in that too. Tutoring services, career centers, mental health resources. And then we can't leave out the cost factor as well. You've got to factor in that financial piece as well. Now, these aren't check boxes. They're just filters to help you figure out what really matters most to you. When you first start building your college list, go big. Dream schools, famous schools, small schools you've never heard of, put them all on the table. As you research more, the list will shift, and that's a good thing. That's what's supposed to happen. Your list should reflect you, not your friends, not Instagram, and not your cousin who knows a guy. All right. In the end, you should aim for 3 types of schools. You have your reach schools, which may just be outside of your comfort zone academically and or financially. Some target schools, which are going to be a solid match. You meet or exceed the average standards. And likely schools, where you feel confident that you're going to get in. Now look at admission requirements, and again, talk with your parents and counselors and build a list that's exciting and realistic. Here's the truth. The right school is the one where you feel comfortable, supported, and happy. Not the one with the flashiest name, and not the one that everyone else is obsessed with. There is a school out there for everyone, and you're going to find yours. Throughout this process, use every resource you have: the internet, your parents, former students, teachers, counselors, and people like us. We're here to help you, and all you have to do is ask. Now, as far as your junior year goes, it is a critical year. There are a few things that you might want to keep in mind. First, academics. This is often your most challenging year, so focus on your grades, challenge yourself, but keep things manageable. Also, think ahead to your summer. Look for pre-college programs, jobs, or experiences that will help you grow and strengthen your application. Stay involved in your extracurriculars. Colleges care more about depth than quantity, so stay committed. Build strong relationships with teachers. You want recommendations from people who know you, your work ethic, your character, and your spark, not just the most popular teacher. We don't know who that most popular teacher is, so get a teacher that can speak to you. Most importantly, maintain balance. Keep your friendships and make time for yourself. Self-care is just as important as academics. Get enough sleep, eat well, and pay attention to your mental health. Burnout is a real thing, and it's not worth it. Stay organized so deadlines don't sneak up on you. Create a balanced schedule that includes classes, activities, and personal time. Use school breaks to recharge. And don't be afraid of setbacks. College admissions isn't about perfection. It's about growth. Every mistake is a chance to build resilience. Yes, the college process takes effort. Yes, it can feel like a lot, but it should not take over your whole life. Don't let every family gathering turn into a college Q&A session. And this is really important as the holidays are coming up and you're seeing a lot of family. Don't let that be the only topic of conversation. Be honest with yourself, know your limits, ask for help, and trust the process. You will find your place. The right school is out there and you're going to get there. All right. And that ends it for me. I want to thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions that you all may have.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandy. Next, Mariah will continue by talking about the holistic approach to admissions review. And I think Mariah has her own PowerPoint if, Ms. Fisher, you want to unshare. I'm not sure. Mariah, are you on here? I'm not actually, she may have gotten, you know what? We're going to go on. If Josh, you're okay with it, can we go on to you to help us understand the ways that students can distinguish themselves? And then we'll come back to Mariah once she can get back into our meet.
Sure, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Definitely. So, hi everybody, Josh Tyler from Bard. Happy to talk about how students can distinguish themselves and how oftentimes that's done through the various components of the application itself. I mean, in many instances, this is going to be perhaps the only interaction that we have with your students is with the application. And certainly when it comes to multiple members of the admission staff, depending on how various institutions read, this is where, the majority of the admission folks are really going to get to know your students. There are a variety of components of this process. One of the earliest ones, and we alluded to campus tours and those sorts of things previously, but one thing that usually happens prior to the actual application itself would be interviews. Now, not everywhere offers interviews, and the types of interviews offered do vary. They can be on the road when we're traveling, they can be at your high schools, they can be on campus, they can be virtual, they can also be with admission staff, students, or possibly even alumni. So it's really important to just find out how the school that you're interested in, what kind of interviews they offer, if any, and if they're required, if they're not, and who they're with. In all of those instances, though, I'd say that this is really an opportunity for the student to kind of showcase who they are, perhaps talk about things that couldn't be explained elsewhere in the application. If there are contextual things around GPA or missing time in school due to illness or family situation, anything like that, or all the positive things, right? Like extracurriculars that you do, anything that can give us a deeper context. These interviews can be very important. Now, one thing I would say is that I know we often stress at Bard that you interview if you have something that you want us to know about that we, like I said, couldn't know about otherwise, but also if you feel it's a strength. There are a lot of different ways in which a student can demonstrate interest and demonstrate context. Okay, we'll talk about demonstrated interest a little bit more later, but certainly students can be sending us emails. They can write in the additional information section, of the application. So an interview isn't the only way to get these things across. But it's certainly, if you feel it's a strength or if it's offered or if it's required, it certainly can be an important part of the process. Moving in to demonstrated interest a little bit more, and what that means is that in many admission office, and this is a good question to ask, is how much that does the specific admission office pay attention to that demonstrated interest is also important. But we do want to know kind of the level of engagement and how serious students are about attending, our institutions. So demonstrated interest can be really gauged in a variety of ways. It can be, did they show up for that tour? Did they decide to interview? But it could also be things like, are they looking at their emails? Are they signing up for virtual events? Have they attended open houses? All of those things can be very important. And I think it's, again, really important to think about how an institution is looking at that demonstrated interest. I know it's important for us. One thing that we really want to be equitable in that process, and knowing that not all students have the ability, especially if the college is further away, to actually visit in person, right? So we do want to see a level of engagement, but how those students are engaging may vary from student to student depending on the resources. But know that it is something that many institutions are looking at. And good to find out how they might be using that information and what they would like to see. So after kind of the interview process, we start to really come into the actual components of the application itself. Now, what is important too is to find out what kind of application the school is accepting. There is, of course, a SUNY application for the New York State schools, but other schools do have their own applications. Many schools these days are using the Common Application or the Coalition Score application, which are more kind of universal, where you can apply to many schools at once using the same application and then just filling out a separate, what we call, member page for the specific college itself. So kind of finding out what your school is accepting is important. And then typically there are essays or perhaps recommendation letters, transcripts, that are required, and also other supplementals. So oftentimes, if you're applying through the Common Application, there's a standard Common App essay that would be used for every school that you're applying to. There are a few different prompts that you can choose from, and that would generally be your main essay, typically 650 words or less. And then many colleges may offer a supplemental. At Bard, for example, we ask for a why Bard. That's a very common one. It does help us see how you're thinking about living and learning in our environment, for sure. So, and I think that's helpful for the student too, because if they're having trouble writing that essay, it may be one of two things. It may mean that that college isn't the right institution for them, or it may mean that just more research needs to be done. And in some cases, those are required, and in some cases, they are not. There are also, as I said, the transcripts will be required, and then recommendation letters can vary. Some schools are not requiring any recommendation letters. Others may be requiring one. We happen to require three, two academic and one counselor. So, and for us, it's very important to kind of see how your teachers are talking about how students are engaging in the classroom and that sort of thing. But in other institutions, they're relying solely on either standardized test scores or the transcript itself. Another important thing is to find out if the institution requires standardized test scores. Many do. Many are test optional. Some are test blind. We've been test optional for over 50 years. It really just depends too partially on the size of the institution. So at a smaller liberal arts institution, you'll often find that there's a very what we call holistic review with a very very much taking context into consideration, where larger universities need to be able to kind of whittle down to look more carefully at a smaller pool of students because their application numbers are just so high. So things like the GPA and standardized test scores may be used to do that. So all things to keep in mind. In terms of some of the supplemental materials, oftentimes these can be portfolios, and portfolios aren't necessarily just for artists. We're looking at writing portfolios, we're looking at scientific research papers, anything to give us a little bit more insight into the work that you've done, the interests that you have. So know that these things can be either submitted directly with the application or sometimes may be submitted through a portal that you receive access to after actually applying to the institution. So I know in our case, we offer both, but I think it's pretty standard that there is some sort of institutional portal that you will be able to kind of interact with the admission office and, your application throughout the process. I think that pretty well. Another thing to mention too would be also things like awards and updates. All of those things too are an important part of the process as we go throughout reviewing an application. So I'm not sure how long I was talking there, but I feel like that was a lot of information. So I think I'll turn it over to the next person. But
Awesome.
to take any
Thank you, Josh.
questions.
We have Mariah back. I think.
I'm here.
Yay! Okay, so we're going to go back to Mariah, who's going to talk to us about the holistic approach to the admissions review. Mariah, it's all yours.
I am so embarrassed. I lost internet at just the absolute worst moment. So I apologize, and hopefully you can all bear with me as I work through this. Are you all able to see my screen okay?
Yep.
Thanks. Okay,
We're good.
So I am here today to talk a little bit about holistic admission. What does that mean and what does it include? I'm going to try to sprinkle in a little bit of information about Binghamton along the way, but I'm going to be here all night. So if you have more questions about Binghamton, I'm happy to talk about that as well. But to get started, I wanted to define what is holistic review. And I know Josh touched on this just a little bit, and I did miss what was said before me, so I'm going to try not to be repetitive, but I may repeat a little of what others have said. But holistic review is when colleges or universities they'll tell you, they're going to say, we use holistic review, we use comprehensive review, we use contextual review. What all of those schools are telling you is that they are going to look at the whole applicant. They want to look at more than just grades or test scores, and they're going to look at academic, personal, contextual factors to understand who you are and how you might contribute to their campus. So everyone on the panel today, Binghamton, Bard, Barnard, and IU, we are all holistic review colleges. And you're going to find in your search that many of the private colleges and public universities that you're looking at follow a holistic model. But there's also some schools out there that do not use holistic review and may only use certain factors, like Josh was saying, to create maybe a formula. Some of the California state universities are an example of that. And then there's also colleges that are considered open admission. And those are various different types of colleges. They usually will allow students in maybe with just a set criteria that they're putting out there, or anyone that has a high school diploma or a GED. So that's very common at community colleges or even some large public universities like University of New Mexico. The nice part of all of this is that your school counselors know who these outlier schools are. They know which schools are holistic and which are looking for different things. And the schools themselves are also very open with sharing that information. So it's easy to find out who's holistic and if they're not. want? What are they looking for? So I want to be clear. When a school says they use holistic review, it does not mean that grades do not matter. They still matter significantly. So when a school is doing holistic review, we will look at your transcript, but we are looking at more than just that number on the transcripts. We're going to really get to know your school. So all transcripts look very different. At Binghamton, we work on a territory manager model. Our territory managers get to know all of the schools in their market, how they grade, what's available at that school. But when they don't know a school, the school also provides a profile that tells a great deal about your school. So if you're applying further afield and maybe not as many students from your school have applied to that university, rest assured, Edgemont provides a fabulous profile that tells all of the details that we need to know about your school. So we can see things like your APs that are offered. We can see all the information that is available, all of the courses and things that are available to a student. And then we also see some information about how they're grading and things like that. So here's an Edgemont transcript. Once we understand what's available to a student, we're going to look at that in context of the school. So we're going to look for rigor, but your profile or our knowledge about our school will have told us that you only can take AP courses once you're referred to take AP courses or recommended to take AP courses. There may be limits on courses. It tells us all of that. It may tell us if there's honor coursework. And so we look at that. We're going to look to see if there's upward or downward trends in an application. I think the Edgemont transcripts are put together really nicely to allow us to see those things. One thing you may notice is that we do see senior year coursework and the overall GPA. What we don't see is the actual senior year grades. So typically we only have 9th, 10th, and 11th at the point students are applying. But we still see those courses you're taking, and it's important that you're still pursuing a rigorous senior year. Schools are going to want to, some schools may want to see mid-year grades, and all schools are going to expect that you maintain that same level of academic success through your senior year. So I don't want to give the impression that a senior year is not important. And then the GPA you see at the top here, everybody does GPAs different. So when a school is doing a holistic review, we look at the GPA, but we also take into account how the school weights. Does it weight? Does it not weight? What type of scale are they using? So those are all the different things that we might look at with a transcript. In addition to academics, we also care greatly about who you are as a person. So we really want to know how you spend your time. We want to know the depth of your involvement, leadership, commitment, impact that your extracurriculars have in your experience. So it's quality over quantity. It's really important that you're really telling us the things that matter to you, the things that have changed who you are through your time in high school. Be careful in this section because this is a section where it's really easy to lean into Edgemont specific acronyms that maybe we wouldn't know. I had a student who used acronyms about some really cool robotics awards they had earned. But when I was looking at the application, I had no idea what they were trying to tell me because I didn't understand any of the acronyms. So you want to make sure that you're being careful, that we actually know what you're doing, that it's clear to us what you're doing. We also know that this section is greatly affected by other life circumstances. So responsibilities at home, personal challenges, socioeconomic factors. And we use all of those clues in your application to understand your extracurriculars, as well as to assess how they may have impacted your academics. And schools may have one or more essays. The essay or essays are where you have a great opportunity to get your voice, perspective, and values across to our applications committee. We want to know who you are. We don't need you to tell us what trauma has happened to you. We don't need to hear about the winning goal at a soccer game, but what we do want to know is that after a significant life event, you grew and changed and what that looked like. Like I said, we don't necessarily care that you won or lost the game, but there may be a really great story there about your growth as a leader of the team, or how through sports you learned to manage your time and became a better student through that and became motivated to go on to college. So really try to think about what you want us to know about you. It's not necessarily just telling a story, it's giving us more information about who you are. Um, and then those supplemental essays are additional opportunities that are asking questions that are going to be important to those schools. So opportunities to share a passion for that school or something that may have happened that affected other pieces of your application. For example, you moved in the middle of your junior year and it was difficult for you to find your groove at your new school or to get re-engaged in extracurriculars, and maybe you didn't have a lot because of that. And those are things that just help us to understand you a little bit better. I know Josh touched on the letters of rec as well. And the letters of rec are an additional opportunity for us to get to know you. And I just tell students, it's not always the class you did the best in. It may mean you struggled and you got to know a faculty member because you were struggling. You went for extra help. You worked really hard in that class. Sometimes that faculty member can tell the most compelling story. I debated giving test scores its own slide because test scores are a really small piece of the overall holistic admission process if a college uses them or requires them, or whether it's optional. It's a pain point for families and for students. First and foremost, I think it's confusing who requires test scores, who doesn't. Schools are test blind, schools are do no harm. Um, and these things are changing right now. So your juniors, as at the time your seniors, it may have changed. So I recommend leaning heavily on your school counselors to help you to make sure you're meeting requirements for the schools that you're applying to. But whether a school requires them, accepts AP in place of SAT or ACT, or only reviews them if they're sent to if they're sent. The way we're using them is to provide additional context to your academics. So are they supportive of how you are performing as a student? Or are they an outlier? And what is that telling us? Yes, being out sick during your junior year was impactful on your grades, but these strong test scores are supportive of how you performed in your sophomore year. So think about that. Think about if those test scores are supportive or tell a story about your academics, or do they not? So that'll be something important for families to consider. So fit. Fit is the most important piece, and there's fit on both sides of the table here. So why are we doing this? We want to build balanced classes. We recognize that students succeed in different ways, and we want to try to understand what you'll bring to campus, perspectives, interests, talents. We want to know about your qualities that can't be captured by grades alone. And does it align with what we offer? I'm hitting the next slide. There we go. There we go. And I just want to end with, while colleges are assessing you, there are also many things on our end that you have no control over and can't account for. So for example, we might be trying to grow our computer science program and have a ton of spots in computer science. And at the same time, we may have had fewer nursing clinical spots and then unable to admit as many nursing students. So part of that holistic review is for us to meet those internal needs. And your application may have been absolutely perfect. You might have done a wonderful job telling us who you are. The numbers may have been there, but it may not have met an institutional need for that particular university. And so I just want to say, I guarantee there'll be a great school for you out there that needs exactly who you are as a student. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mariah. Sounds great. Before we move on, a quick reminder that we'll be closing the question form shortly. So make sure to add your last minute questions now. All right, Jen, you've been on both sides, having gone through the process yourself. Can you share with us, both as an admissions representative and as a parent, how to manage expectations through this process?
Oh, I am so delighted to, and I really am so happy to be here tonight. Having had two daughters go through a process of applying to college. They were 2 years apart, very different kinds of children. So it was really interesting to both see it as a parent and see it through the work that I do. The first thing that I just want to start with to say, we have thrown so much information at you all, and um, this is information overload. And so I just hope that you all can just take a breath and know that you will hear this information over and over again. And we need to share this information over and over again because there's a lot that will sort of go in and in one ear and out the other ear at the beginning. So try not to be too overwhelmed by it. The other is that I think what we also learn in this process is that things are very unpredictable, and sometimes we really like predictable, right? And so it becomes very uncomfortable, and it's just not knowing what's going to happen throughout this process, or like what the end result will be. And so it's important to just take your time and take it one step at a time, one day at a time. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then I really wanted to kind of give some ideas and thoughts for parents in this process, and then also for students in this process. I mentioned I had two daughters who went through it. First daughter, very extroverted, very confident, like ready to jump in. So she'd be the kind of kid who is taking lots of notes during this evening and ready to talk about it when the Zoom is over. My second daughter was sort of dragged probably to this session. I know some of you are on here like that. And then the minute the Zoom is over and I want to talk, she wanted to go away and not talk at all. And we have to be prepared for both of those kinds of individuals and learn how to really work through and manage the many different personalities and the many different emotions that will come through this process. So first, I will share sort of 4 things that I was thinking about with parents. And the first is how important it is to give your children ownership in this process. And when we talk about roles, your role is as a parent to support your children and to help guide them through this process, but not lead them, like not lead this process. It really needs to be them. Everything from making appointments and asking the kinds of questions that students need to be asking, and helping them, which is sort of my second thing, of developing their own voice in this process. And I want to share one story that I have, and this is a particular story, although there's many stories like this, that I received an email from a parent. I think it was like the night that applications were due, or like the night before the applications were due. And the email said something like, we're getting ready to submit the application, and we're not sure about one aspect of the application. So we're going to submit it, but could you please call me tomorrow so that I can know if we need to correct something? So there's many problems with that email. The first of which, it was sent the night that before applications were due. The second of which is there was a we phrase in that. And we have to be really careful about that we phrase, right? The third was that the parents sent the email, right? So going back to that ownership, where we want the student to try and send the emails, and that the student ultimately needs to be one to pushing that submit button and writing those essays and doing all the really critical things in this process. Again, as a parent, you are there to guide them and help them and like talk through what the email should look like and all of that, but they need to really do this. This, you will hear again and again, is a huge growth process. And it can be crazy along the way, but you and your child will learn so much about each other and about them. They will learn about themselves. And it really is wonderful in the end. But you have to be reminded of that all the time. The third thing that I wanted to say for parents is, and certainly for students too, is look beyond the usual suspects. And you've heard tonight about small schools and big schools and the ways to look for different colleges. And we've talked about fit a little bit tonight. But I think what I saw a lot when my kids were at Edgemont was that word of mouth, right? So-and-so applied to this place, and therefore I want to look at this place. Or so-and-so didn't have a good tour, so we shouldn't go on the tour. And you have to, or you heard, oh, well, so and so said this is not a good school, and so I shouldn't look at it. Or when I was applying to college, it was not a good school. What is so wonderful and unique about a place like Edgemont are there are all kinds of backgrounds of families at Edgemont. Some who are from this area forever and ever. Some who have never been educated in the United States as parents, and so this is very, very new to you. Um, some who went to particular kind of schools and are very hung up on their children going to that particular school as well. So, but it is really important to keep an open mind. Schools, when I was applying to college, that I didn't think were strong schools, right? They were always strong schools. They may not have been as competitive as they are today, but there are many schools, right, that are much more competitive. The numbers of applications that are coming through the pipeline are different. So just to keep an open mind, to really do your research and learn and talk to the counselors at the school who know a lot and can really help guide. And then the last thing for parents is really around it's around finances. And there's going to be a wide spread of you on this call and at Edgemont of some families who are not going to be applying for financial aid and some families that may need a lot of financial aid. But for all families, I would say it's important to have a conversation with your children about finances. This is an incredibly expensive endeavor that you are all going to be embarking on, and there's going to be responsibilities on both sides, students and parents. And so it's really important to just have that conversation early on, and then parents need to do their part. If they're applying for financial aid, there's forms and deadlines that they are going to be needing to meet, and so do your part in that regard. And then for students, a couple of things. The first one is really about not being passive in this process. And you may do it on your own timeline, right? And you might not be ready to jump in. At some point, you have to jump in. And it's uncomfortable and you don't know what you're doing, but you have to jump in someplace. And one great place to jump in is to have that meeting with your counselor. Your counselors are great at helping kickstart this process for you about how to do that research. All these things we've talked about tonight, how to do that research, reflecting on who you are, et cetera, et cetera. The second thing is being organized. Some of you may be incredibly organized and some of you may not. And this is an important part to try to have some semblance of organization. There are lots of different deadlines that you're going to need to meet. There are lots of different kinds of paperwork that you have to pull together in this process. Different kinds of essays that you'll need to write. Long essay, short essay, and just you're going to take college tours, like lots of things you have to be organized about. So some people may be really into charts and some people may be really into just putting notes on your, into your phone, whatever way works for you. But just really try to think about that and be really conscious of that. And the third is to, at some point, in addition to that, not being passive, of learning how to communicate, whether it's with your parents or whether it's with your counselors or whether it's with colleges. How are you using email? How are you using the phone? How are you getting your thoughts across and also receiving thoughts as well? And then the last thing is just being yourself. And colleges will talk about authenticity, and they will talk about wanting to learn about who you are. And I think in this process, it's so easy to try to conform and to think about what does the college want from me? We want who you are. And that will come through if you are just very authentic in your application about sharing who you are and not trying to like fit something into, what a college might be looking for. So I too have thrown a lot at you, but I hope that that's just some helpful tips for you. And I know we're gonna answer questions and share more as well. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So now for everybody, can you share with us some trends that you've seen emerging? And well, let's start with that one. Any trends you see emerging that are worth sharing?
I don't know if this is worth mentioning or what you're kind of going for, but particularly at IU, our trend, or in general, I think the trend is that students are applying to more schools. Like they're applying to so many schools. So one of the things that I was saying all fall was, if you haven't heard this yet, you're going to hear it from a school. We all saw an increase in applications. And I know that some of us have mentioned that tonight as well, that the number of applications that we're receiving is insane. And so it is impacting the way that we review applications and things like that. So I think that there is this trend where students are applying to more schools. I don't think that this is necessarily a good trend. They're maxing out their Common App options, then they're going to all of the like coalition or anything like that, and then they're applying with our own applications, and that's just a lot, and that's a lot of stress for students too. So I think there's this trend to apply to more schools and see how many schools I can get into.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a trend because I think it's here to stay and not going anywhere, but AI and how schools are using AI, how students are using AI, and putting some parameters around it. And I think that needs to be done for both colleges and for the students. I think there's a lot of benefit to AI, but it's also kind of the wild, wild west and a little scary out there. So I think there'll be a lot more talk about that over the next many years.
Do you mind? We did have a question that came in about AI. Would the reps who feel comfortable say a little bit about if they have a recommendation for students or families when they're considering kind of appropriate ways to use AI or not at all in the application process, if you have any kind of advice?
I will say that last week I had two students reach out to me and did I freeze again? Maybe I'm okay.
No, you're good.
You hear me?
Yes, you're good.
You can hear me. Okay. So we had two students reach out to us last week that let us know that they had used AI to write their essays. I think there's a lot of tattling on each other. I don't know if there is fear that other students, that may be another trend, that students are tattling on each other constantly. They're saying so-and-so did this or did that or said this on the internet, that on the internet. So I don't know if they told us out of fear that someone else was going to tell us, or they really truly wanted to own up to what they had done. But they reached out on their own and they let us know that they had used AI to write their essays. I looked at the essays and I can tell you they just were not good essays. Yes, they were well written, they were factual. They told us absolutely nothing about the student. So it helped in no way for that student's though either of those students' applications. It gave nothing additional to that application process, and it did nothing for the student. It also robbed them of an opportunity to do some of that introspective thinking of what maybe they wanted to get across to an admission committee. I do think there's some uses for it. It may be good to help with practice on drumming up some ideas of things you might want to write about, free thinking type things. But using it in a really responsible way and making sure that what you're representing to the colleges is truly who you are and what you want to tell us in your own words, and not allowing AI to take that from you.
Yeah, there are also, just to add, there are some colleges that are being pretty clear on their websites and putting up statements about the use of AI in the application. So certainly look for those as you're looking on websites for colleges. At Barnard, I think I I don't think AI is bad for like idea generation. Just like reading our literature, looking at our websites, things like that. But at some point, you have to put all that away and just think for yourself, and write for yourself. I always say to students too, like I'm looking for 18-year-old writing. I'm not looking for, AI writing or 40-year-old writing. And so like it's no different in terms of students getting help on their essays from their parents or a teacher or somebody else. Like it's okay to have somebody else look at something, but in the end, you have to feel comfortable about your own work and feel proud about your work.
Great, thank you. a question about testing. Since COVID, schools have been handling testing policies in very unique ways. Can you speak to all of your schools' testing policy and the impact that scores have on the process, and a sense of the direction it's going? I know Mariah talked a little bit about it before, but I think also hearing from some more of you about what testing looks like in your schools.
Sure,
Go
I
ahead,
can.
Brittany.
Oh, sorry, unmuted at the same time. Indiana University, we are test optional. We're going to remain test optional. So it is up to the student whether they want to submit those test scores. If they do, as we talked about the holistic process earlier, they will absolutely be reviewed, but it is that very small piece in the review. It is never going to be the make or break point for a student's application. We do not use test scores for any scholarship consideration or for any of our direct admit programs or for our honors college. So it is just a very small piece of the application puzzle.
And I'd second that for Bard. Like I said before, we've been test optional for over 50 years. You're never going to see a Scantron sheet or a multiple choice question in the work at Bard. So, it's why your transcripts and teacher recommendations are the more important evaluation of your academic, potential and work. Might it be helpful if you, got a C in your math class, but a 650, 700 on your math SAT? Sure. But it really is such a small part, and again, is very much not the kind of assessment that we do at Bard. And I think that also kind of speaks a bit to the AI piece as well, that if you're relying on AI to do the work because it is so, project based and writing based, that you're kind of doing yourself a disservice in the long run of not, knowing how to engage with the work in the way that one should be typically doing at the college and university level.
So I'll just jump in to say, we were one of the schools that when we were test optional during COVID, have not gone back to testing and have not made any sort of final decision. So we are still test optional, and outline that on our website. I think that for us, what that means is if we don't have testing, it's one piece that we're just not looking at, right? That we are looking at all the other aspects of your application. If testing is there, then it'll be a piece of your application. What we have seen for sure, as other schools have, is that students that see what our median scores have been are often submitting testing when it's at or above. And if it's not, then they are not submitting testing. And I think that it's all relative to the individual student. And so I think it's, a really important conversation to have with your counselor about what makes sense for you. But if a school says they are test optional, they are test optional, and they're not. And certainly we are not trying to second guess why you have or have not submitted scores.
And Binghamton and the SUNY system are also test optional. The SUNY system hasn't put any dates on that, but I am assured that it will be test optional for next year, and I am sure will continue. They've said for the foreseeable future. So I think we can continue to see that the SUNY system will be test optional.
Great. And last question from us before we get to the question and answer part is, what's one piece of advice that you haven't shared yet that you'd like to give our junior families as they dive into this college application journey?
I want to give one piece of advice as it relates to emails, because we all receive like tons and tons of emails. And we talked a little bit about this, but whenever you're emailing us, it's very helpful if one, you're using the email address that you're using to apply to colleges, because that's how it's easiest for us to find you in our systems. And we do keep all of those emails. So if we can attach that email to your file, it's just one more piece for us. But also use your name, students should be the ones doing the emailing. And also, if you're going to reference something that you emailed us in the past, maybe keep that email stream continuing instead of starting a new email referencing something that we can't already see in there. So just kind of those email etiquette pieces for that.
I'll reiterate a little bit of how I ended my presentation section, but it's important to engage in this process and to be interested in this process, but not to let it take over your life. Don't change who you are to try to fit a particular school. Don't try to change what you're interested in for a particular school. Don't frame everything around that. Know that as an applicant, you are extremely valuable and that you have wonderful qualities, and there is going to be a college or university that is going to be the right fit for you, that both wants you and you want them for exactly who you are.
And yeah, I can add to that as well by just saying, you know, it's something that our college president says all the time, that in the end, where you go isn't going to matter as much. It's how you do and the experience that you have and what you make out of it, right? Whether it's a big name or a small name, but it's what you've learned, it's what you've been able to create for yourself. So I think in the last 10 years especially, it's become a much more stressful process of like the push to apply early, and you must do this and you must do that. That's really not the case. It can be, you know, in some circumstances, but I think if you kind of use the advice that you had today, ask the right questions, you know, it really does ease the process. And I think give you a better understanding of what we are actually looking for and what the opportunities are. And again, just know that you're going to land at the right place. And one thing that was not mentioned tonight, but is maybe relevant for this, is that I'm also the director of transfer admission at Bard. So if you make a mistake, you know, it's not a permanent mistake, right? We see students transferring all the time. So don't feel like that's the end of the world either. You know, we're all here to help and make this the smoothest process it can be.
I will round us out by saying I just want to talk about essays for a quick second, because it is a big piece of the process. I love reading essays. I learned so much about students. But this is the kind of writing as a student that you have never often done before. It's very different. It's hard to talk about yourself, and it's hard to say, I don't know which piece of myself to talk about. And so starting that earlier, and it could even mean like just doing free writing on, you get the list of all the different kinds of essays from Common App, just write a paragraph about each, right? And just, you know, to see which kind of essay appeals to you. But then sort of fast forwarding, I just think put in your head by the end of the summer that you have a draft. Because the minute school starts in your senior year, things get really busy. And to say to yourself at that point, I'm starting something, or I don't like have something together, is going to just put so much more pressure. So to really push yourself so that by the end of the summer, you have a good working draft that you can then refine as school begins.
Shall I jump in with the Q&A, Emily? Okay. So I'm Stephanie Fuentes. So I'm just one of the counselors, and I'm just going to ask a couple of the questions that families had sent in. So, and we will try to be mindful of the time that our presenters have already shared with us. So if there were questions that were asked that were already answered, I'm going to go ahead and skip them. So please do not be offended if you asked a question. Obviously, it was a good one because the information was already presented. So we're grateful for our experts. Let's see. So in a general one, we have a good population of international students at Edgemont, and there was a question just kind of about what should they be mindful of? How maybe are they assessed differently? Are there a particular number of international students you have to take, and are they assessed differently in any particular way? If there's any advice you have for families who may be families who are international, or they're maybe their first time going through this process in the US, that they should think about. And you don't all need to speak on it, but if anybody particularly has a desire.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to how we handle it because we have a fairly large population of international students. About 18% of our students are international, and where the biggest difference in the process comes for us would be with the financial aid piece. Because we do package with federal loans, and so we're typically able to often meet beyond full tuition, but for international students, we do ask that they have the coverage of the room and board and additional fees costs. So that tends to be the big difference in terms of how we look at the student academically and holistically, and every other regard is exactly the same. And we'd be happy to have 50% international students. So we're not necessarily looking for, we don't want that number to shrink too much because we're kind of proud that we have that representation, right? But it's really for us a matter of what we realistically can do with financial aid for those students.
I'll just jump in to say that, I'll just start by saying, like, no question is a stupid question because I think for many families who are international and maybe have not been educated here in the US, there's not an understanding of a lot of different things. Like, education is very different in other countries. Everything from the concept of what does liberal arts mean as a term? What is the difference between a college and a university? Um, what is a residential campus like? Like, these are all things that I think for many families I've seen, it's very new to some families. And that's really exciting and really fun, but it can, it's very daunting. And so, please as families and certainly as parents, feel like you can ask those questions for yourselves, aside from the kinds of questions that your children are asking. And that it makes it important to visit different schools, even locally, just so you see what different schools are like before you even start to go visit other places.
And I'll just add that sometimes colleges define international differently than families might. So you may have come here and you feel that you're international, but you may be on a different visa type than that college or university considers for international students, or you may not be on a visa. So you can ask colleges those questions on how they're going to define you. And then if you are going to be an international student for that campus, there may be a few additional things like English proficiency required, or as Josh was saying, proof of funds. But if you are not what they are defining as international, then you would be reviewed just exactly the same as all other students.
Thank you so much. Ms. Brookman, I believe you had a question.
Yes, thank you all. Can you tell us how a student's social media account plays a role, meaning the do's and don'ts of posting, commenting, liking, and can you see private accounts?
I'll jump in here. I can say that we don't have time to look at students' social media accounts, so we're not doing that. But I think it was Mariah earlier, you were saying about how students are tattling on each other. Students are tattling on each other. So if you are posting inappropriately on your social media, students will let us know that. And sometimes it's not even students that are other applicants at our schools. They will email us and be like, so-and-so posted this. And then that is something that we do go and we look at. And if it is something that goes against some of our university policies, that can then play a role in a student's decision or rescinding a student's decision. But as a general rule, I'm not sitting down with the thousands of applications that I'm reviewing and looking at every student's social media accounts. We just don't have the time to do that.
Did anybody else want to
summarize? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think the general news is if there's something on the social media that you're concerned might be seen by college, then maybe you don't post it. But I know that that's from an adult and teenagers are living in the moment. So, but it is good advice anyway. Another question came up. This one is particularly for Ms. Jen von Diller. A community member asked if you could just kind of clarify the difference between Barnard and Columbia and like what is shared, and maybe specifically more the differences in terms of applying, attending, housing, like that kind of.
Yeah, I'll just do that really briefly. And certainly, anybody's more than welcome to contact me afterwards. Well, not tonight, obviously, but tomorrow would be great. So,
Or their
yeah,
counselor, or their
right.
counselor.
Yeah, exactly. So, going way back in time, Barnard was originally the sister school to Columbia. Late 1800s, Columbia's only admits men. President of Columbia, his name was Frederick Barnard, really wanted women to have the same kind of education. And so they did not go co-ed at that point, but they developed a second school, and so they called it Barnard College. So fast forward all the way to the 1980s, when Columbia College does go co-ed. Barnard is at that point like the sister school to Columbia, but we are also an independent college. We decided to remain an independent college dedicated to women, with a partnership with Columbia. So it's kind of like a corporate partnership where there's a lot of back and forth with regards to cross-registration of classes, and lots of joint activities, things like that. We have our own campus, which is located across the street from Columbia, maintain our own faculty, our own housing, our own admissions processes. So everything is very separate, but there are some things that we work with jointly with Columbia. We are about 3,000 undergraduate students. Columbia is around like 5,500 undergraduate students plus their graduate programs. So we are a small college. They are a larger university. If you come to visit, you can sense that when you walk onto one campus on one side of the street and cross the street, go to the other, you really do feel that sense of size. And with a small college, there are certain things in terms of access and connections and community that just feels different than at a bigger college. So that's a very quick summary, but lots of crossover between the two schools, but different feel at both places.
I just we have one last question from the families in regard to, and if one or two want to respond, in regard to study abroad, does the school offer support in helping students figure out like where, when, how to study abroad? Is there support in the schools for that, or is it family expected to navigate that?
I can jump in and speak for the whole SUNY system because I think it's one of the things that the SUNY system does exceptionally well. All of our study abroad programs are linked throughout the entire system. So you can choose a study abroad program from any of the 64 SUNY campuses and study abroad for as a New York State resident, New York State tuition. And each of the campuses has an office that is dedicated to study abroad. So they work with students to make sure that they're considering extra things like how much it might cost to travel back and forth, making sure they have the funds for those types of things, the coursework that they're going to take to make sure that it'll transfer back appropriately for their degree, or even if they're in a specialized degree program like in engineering, which can be really difficult to do a study abroad program with because of the lockstep nature, they might help a student to find an internship while they're studying abroad in Germany. So definitely a lot of hand holding through the process. And I think you will find the hand holding at most, if not many of the campuses that you're looking at. But I just wanted to highlight quickly some of the great things the SUNY system is doing there.
Awesome. Okay, we did it. Thank you so much to our panelists who took time out of their busy schedules to be with us tonight. Thank you to Ms. Fisher for running the PowerPoint presentation, and for Ms. Brookman and Ms. Fuentes for doing the question and answer part. And all of you guys as participants, we really appreciate you joining us tonight. As always, the Edgemont Counseling Department is here to help guide you and your family through this journey. And we look forward to seeing you all in your post-secondary planning meetings that are coming up after the new year. Information about those meetings will be forthcoming. So thank you all. And